Welcome to Good Game, your no BS insights for crypto founders.
Now, the question is, as you were growing up, did you ever listen to 50 Cent?
Of course.
Okay, just making sure.
You know, I put Many Men on repeat for the whole day, the day after the Let me show you this.
Oh man, was there a token?
I'm sure there's gotta be one. There's gotta be one.
Oh, somebody did launch a token. Oh no one. Yeah, 50 Trump. There you go. Oh man.
Looking for your next startup idea in crypto? Check out our request for startups list and get inspired at alliance.xyz/ideas.
All right. Looks like we've seen almost a near assassination of Trump.
Hey, you know what? For this episode, instead of our usual intro music, we should put Many Men.
I think that would be great. And we should have the Trump logo kind of come up.
Did you see? I saw a TikTok video. I think it's true. It's not fake. But 50 Cent had he did a concert and he put Trump. He remade the poster or something with Trump's face instead of his face for the Many Men song. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw it, but I didn't know it came from there.
It was real, and
wow,
he was quick with it.
And then, funny enough, the song Many Men. So someone created an AI version of it with Trump actually rapping over it.
That was okay.
Launched.
That was
It was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
It launched on Crate, and it went. Oh, well, I mean, it would launch on Crate, and then it also went viral on Twitter. So it was fun, but it also had huge implications on the market. It may have brought the market up maybe a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, I think it's not a matter of timing, but rather a matter of scale, right? Because previously, I mean, the election odds, the odds of Trump getting elected went up like 10%, 10-20%. It went from like 60s to 75 now. So
that, and then I think what happened on the market side, public market side, is that it initially created a boost of a bunch of like last mile buyers, and then I think that kind of sparked into something even much bigger, where they ended up kind of front running each other to the point where we are now.
Yeah.
So this bounce was bound to happen. It was just when, and I think people were waiting for the catalyst.
Yeah.
And this catalyst, it turns out to be the Trump's assassination attempt.
Yeah. And then the day after, I can't remember what happened, but the market started pricing in a rate cut probability of 100% in September.
Yeah.
Whereas previously it was like 70% until that weekend. So the combination of these two things, like everything rallied. Gold, ARK ETFs, which is very rate sensitive. Bitcoin, of course, everything rallied. Another
side note, Trump mentioned the other day, he said he was going to pick Jamie Dimon as a treasurer.
Yeah.
And he was going to allow Powell to keep his job because he didn't do the rate cuts during the early stages of the election to help Biden win.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Yeah.
Well, he said that?
He said that. He didn't say it to as clear as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
But he talked.
He implied that.
He implied that. Yes. Okay. So September makes sense, right? I mean, it could be a bit later, but it makes sense as far as why Powell has been pretty strict on not doing any rate cuts, because we were supposed to have rate cuts per the market 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So I think this was more of a strategic move from Powell, but who knows? The
one person that really caught me both off guard and also pleasant surprise is JD Vance. I actually didn't know him before he got
I didn't either.
Nominated. But I did a little bit of research into him. I think we should share the videos that I saw.
The videos.
Like it's just a couple minutes.
He knows what he's talking about when it comes to tokens. And I think one of the videos, which lasts up to 21 minutes, on the 16th minute, he implies the token he's talking about is Helium.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
He talked about Helium?
He didn't say Helium, but he implied it. Even the founder of Helium quote retweeted and said he's talking about Helium, and everyone yeah, that's true.
He also said Gary Gensler is the polar opposite of himself, and I immediately thought it was over. It was over for Gary Gensler, basically.
Do you know Vance's portfolio holdings?
Crypto holdings?
His entire holdings.
What is it?
He has 100 to 250K of BTC on Coinbase.
Oh.
And then 500K to $1 million of an ETF, QQQ.
Okay.
That's it.
So he's a tech guy.
The tech guy. In fact, I don't know if you read the article about how Peter Thiel mentored Vance, but pretty much Peter Thiel took JD Vance under his wing.
Yeah. He
started a traditional fund where Peter Thiel invested. Vance invested in a bunch of startups. He mentored him from a political ideological perspective. He helped build a stronger relationship between Trump and Vance. So Peter Thiel played a big part in JD Vance's kind of road to becoming VP. And that's really good for us, right?
I just feel like Peter Thiel makes all these like highly skewed venture bets, right? And JD Vance being one of them.
Yep.
And occasionally one of these like just take off. Trump was actually one of his other venture bets in 2 elections ago, right?
He's good.
He's
a great investor.
Yep. But you know what? I was really impressed with Vance's background. So my wife read his book.
Okay.
He wrote a pretty famous book about the struggles of the American working class, because he was born in one of those families in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Not too far from Chicago.
Great. Yeah. Great city.
And he talked about how hard it was for his class, social class, to move up the social ladder. And basically that the American dream is dead for this segment of the country. And he wrote that like maybe 8 years ago.
Wow.
Before he was, I think before he became a politician. But what really strikes me about that part of his life is that he came from that part of the world, right? The working class. But then he became a tech VC. And now he's like really pro crypto, right? Like all these things combined is just like, he makes me think that he's a really special guy. Like very special life experience.
Well, 100% agree. I also think it's almost the average experience that a millennial goes through, right? He's a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
And there's struggle, right? We're dealing with the boomers. We're dealing with, high inflation and interest rates. And, there's this meme that's on Twitter, everywhere, that, millennials essentially received a lot of the shit. We got the shittier end of the stick when it comes to the economics and the monetary policies that we have. And so it makes a lot of sense as to how he connected the dots with all the other millennials, I think.
And he married an Indian woman, and he has a son called Vivek.
Yep.
And like, those are pretty common in like California, but he's a conservative VP candidate, which is pretty unusual, right?
It's very unusual. Yeah, it is. But you're also seeing this shift too. I saw a thread about this, but Silicon Valley used to be hard left, right?
Very left.
And now they're swinging completely right.
I wouldn't say completely, but like you see you can feel the shift, the sentiment shift. I feel like it all started with Elon, who took over Twitter a few years ago, because Elon is leaning more right than the left. Like I use Twitter every day, and I feel like over the last few years, Twitter has been shifting from the left to at least the middle, right? And I feel like Elon played a big part. Like yesterday, I
see what you mean.
Like Newsom passed this new law where if your child identifies as a transgender in a public school, then the school is not allowed to notify the parents. Did you see that? That was a law that was passed.
This is common, and this is happening in the Midwest already.
Yeah,
it's annoying. You gotta let the parents know.
And Elon was really pissed about it, and he was like, "I'm moving my headquarters from California to Texas."
Did you also see the announcement yesterday? Microsoft killed their DEI group.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So we're starting to see I think the implosion of the blue and the stated agendas that they started with, and people aren't happy about the implications, especially the tech sector. And I think they played a pretty big part in shifting the mind state from where it is.
There's the all-in guys shielding Trump for the last few months, and then there's Mark Andreessen supporting Trump yesterday. Did you see that?
Yes, saw that.
Like
Cuban's still Biden.
Yeah, Cuban's still Biden. But you remember like a few years ago, like 8 years ago, how unpopular it was to support Trump, at least in Silicon Valley, and now it feels like the popular thing to do.
Yes.
Right?
I think also Trump changed his image, just even the way he speaks. I feel as if it isn't as heated as it isn't as polarized as it used to be.
Yeah.
So I think there was a shift in his character a bit, or his public persona.
Like I've been really reluctant to support Trump. I just don't think he's a good role model for the country.
He's not a good what?
He's not
role
a good
model.
He's not a good role model.
But what president is though? Outside of Obama, sure.
No, I mean, among the current candidates, he's probably the best among the current candidates. But among past presidents, I mean, we've had a few pretty good ones. At least good role models, right?
Role models, yeah. But if you think about their,
But I think what sealed the deal for me was JD Vance.
Yeah.
Like I looked into let me show the video of JD Vance.
Show me the video. Are you talking about the video where he talks about utility tokens?
No, that's a long one. I think everyone saw it, but everyone on crypto.
So you have a different one. Okay.
I'm showing a different one.
Have a foreign policy of building roads and bridges and feeding poor people. And I think that we should pursue a foreign policy, a diplomacy of respect, and a foreign policy that is not rooted in moralizing. It's rooted in the national interest of this country.
I was pretty shocked when I saw this, because I can't remember the last time I heard a politician speak not positively but fairly about America's biggest competitor, which is China. And I was like, this is really refreshing. But there's other videos like this, like similar to like of him talking about his other views on various issues. But I've been just pretty. It just felt really refreshing.
It is, and it's also refreshing to me to see more younger people in higher positions within American politics, because the point of view that's always represented is the point of view that's not the majority, right? I mean, you have the boomers that have the majority of wealth, but I mean, the people that are in the working class are the people that should be represented in American politics. So seeing Vance up there,
he's like 39 years old or something.
He's 39 years old.
Not even 40.
No, to me is a great sign in that. Like, look, I'm hopeful that if they were to be elected, that they will start to make real changes. I haven't been this hopeful in a very long time. But with Vance,
about crypto or
no, I'm talking about American politics.
Okay,
I was always very negative. I was skewed negative. Like, it doesn't matter. There's a political agenda that's always represented, and it's always the boomers, right? And it isn't like really a representation of everyone, of the American working class and the actual people that are represented in that class. But starting to listen
he
to
reminded me
Vance,
of Vivek. Did you know Vance and Vivek went to the same law school with their classmates and their friends?
I didn't know they went to school, but I know the whole Vivek. I know he was friends with his wife.
Yeah. But they are...
Ohio is actually a very small town. Like Dayton, there's Dayton, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And there's a lot of Indians in Columbus and Dayton.
Yeah.
I lived there for a year. So
oh, you did?
Yeah.
But so let's say Trump gets elected, which I think now is pretty high likelihood, like over 70%, 75%. How do you think that's going to impact crypto in the next 4 years?
I mean, I just see it as up only.
Up only?
Incredibly bullish. And I think you texted me this, but Trump could bring the animal spirits out in crypto, which is true. I think it's going to be very bullish. Vance also mentioned something which I thought was interesting. He goes, in his talk, he talks about how how Gensler overregulates utility tokens to the point where nobody wants to buy it. And because of that shift, everybody is buying tokens that have no value. And he goes, it should be the other way around. So I think it's very bullish for crypto, but is it bullish for meme coins? I'm not too sure.
Okay, so I don't think Vance is bullish for meme coins, but I think Trump is bullish for meme coins.
Yeah.
Because Trump is trying to burn the animal spirit out of everyone. Like it's not just meme coins, but also like the non-profitable tech companies, publicly listed tech companies. So that's one thing. The other thing that I texted you about was Naval's tweet.
Yes, I want to talk about that. I have one more thing. Trump also said, just to end this note, Trump also said, I think the guys want me to launch another NFT collection, so I'm going to do it.
That's his fourth NFT?
He's launching another NFT collection.
Yeah. He's done 3 in the past, I think.
Yeah. This is his 4th one. All right. So talk about Naval's tweet.
All right, here it is. In the typical fashion, one sentence, one-liner. Crypto VCs are largely unnecessary. The first thing that came to mind was that I think there is now a much greater chance in the next 4 years that ICOs will be back. I don't think the chance is that high, but I think by ICOs being back, I mean in a regulated and compliant way in the US.
Yep.
I think with a Trump election and JD Vance, I think there's probably a much higher chance than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And if ICOs are back, I do think that a lot of founders will choose to do that.
I mean, outside of a few, I mean, like I don't want to be as public about this, but I mean, really, like if you look at our investor reviews and if you talk to founders in our community, it's very hard for investors to help move the needle for the founder. It's not something that it just doesn't happen. I mean, you and I chatted with the founder of First Round, who is one of the premier tier 1 investors in Web2. And he mentioned something to both of us, if you remember. And he said that Josh Kopelman, and what Josh Kopelman said to us was, VC business is an anti-network effect business. The more you invest in startups, the harder it is to support all of them at equilibrium. So, yeah, I mean, like from a crypto perspective, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you have this other funding vehicle and if you get similar support. Just from a branding and recognition perspective, I think that in itself is a third of the job.
I mean, at the moment, for the vast majority of VCs, by far their biggest utility is capital. And therefore, if ICOs do come back, I think the venture money will face a lot of competition from retail money.
But I have another theory I want to hear your thoughts on.
Mm-hmm.
I think the venture community will pivot to becoming liquid buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think the VC community will be there. I just think that it will be rebranded to liquid buyers or hedge funds or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And they can still offer support, right? But the support will be primarily if they can find the right opportunities where they actually want to dig in and roll up their sleeves and help support the founders.
Yeah.
In exchange for some sort of discount on a token or something.
I think that will be healthy for the market. I do feel like there's a lack of liquid funds, professional liquid buyers relative to venture investors.
How many are there? Like, I know Defiance is one, from Arthur from Defiance. I
mean, the thing with liquid funds is that they typically don't need to virtual signal, right? So you don't hear about them, right? Because they engage in the secondary market. They're not in the business of trying to get deal flow. So I'm sure there's a lot of them. But even then, I feel like there's a lot of really undervalued tokens. We can talk about those. Like,
there's so many.
There's a lot of DeFi tokens that just feel like there's no buyers, but they're so cheap. Like, I just feel like there's not enough professional liquid funds that invest in those, and all the liquid investors are currently retail, and they're all buying meme coins. So I think VCs, pivoting into liquid funds will be pretty healthy for the market.
On a side note, I had one of the largest liquid fund managers reach out to me. They manage, let's say, 250 million plus, go up to upwards of $1 billion, and they're like, is there fundamental analysis we could do on meme coins? Is there how do you pick the right meme coins? And I go through what the average person goes through, right, to analyze the meme coin and buy it. And they were even more confused leaving the call than they were when they started the call. So I think meme coins are going to be primarily for retail.
Were they confused or were they disappointed?
Probably both.
If I'm a professional liquid fund, right, and I hear, okay, you need to follow Ansem, you need to engage all these Degen Telegram groups, and then if I hear that to be the best way to find meme coins, I would feel pretty disillusioned and annoyed.
Maybe he was. Actually, the whole team was on. So maybe he was, but I gave him like all the links on who to follow and what to do. But I think they should just stick to DeFi and others is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Memecoins, I think it's going to be more primarily for and I think the memecoin meta changes so quickly that you have to be in the trenches or it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I just remember Jake Cherminsky put out a tweet as well a week ago about how token projects are currently taking a very conservative approach.
Oh, yes.
About listing, about marketing, all that stuff. And that things could change after the election. I couldn't agree more. I think we're going through the same process, but like companies and teams going more aggressive with experimentation with tokens and all these truly crypto native things will happen a lot more if and when Trump gets elected. So yeah, so it's not just a matter of number go up, but also actually more experimentation, more interesting innovations.
Yeah, and seeing this from the US side would be interesting as well, right? Like,
yeah.
Imagine how, like, even just thinking about a compliant ICO platform for retail. Did you see the announcement of Degen Layer 3? I know you love Layer 2, so I definitely want to talk.
Was it the hack and people lost money?
Or no, it wasn't a hack.
It was a bug.
There was no bug.
What happened?
It was a design of there wasn't a legitimate postmortem, but it was the user that tweeted this out. So I'll explain what he said and then go from there. So someone tried to bridge from Degen Layer 3 to Base. So they used the bridge to do that. And so let's say he sent $100,000 worth of Degen to Base. He only received like $10,000. And he's like, what happened to the rest of the money? So he looked into it, and it turns out the bridge actually, what it does is it does a local swap and then sends the ETH to Base and then buys the Degen there.
Oh, okay. So the bridge sells Degen into ETH and then on the layer 3, and then bridge ETH back to layer 2, and then swap back from ETH to Degen.
Yeah. And he's using something called the decent bridge to do that.
So he lost money because of the slippage?
Slippage.
Okay. And the swap happens in AMM?
AMM.
Interesting.
So he wrote this giant tweet about why layer 3s suck. And the Degen layer 3 handle talked about why the infrastructure supporting Degen is horrible. And that they're going to make a very big change, and they're just very unhappy with the way their infra works today. And I think you made a point a couple podcasts ago about how this additional layer of infra is going to make it even more difficult for users or for founders and developers to build good products, right? Because now you have to worry about this third iteration of the same concept.
Yeah.
The RPC tooling, the infra, all of this stuff just makes it much more harder. And so you have to go through the same mistakes again. And that could permanently churn users, right? Like now, most of the users, they're not going to go back and bridge to Degen, especially the ones that lost their money. So, I just thought it was an interesting experiment.
I think layer 3s are extremely far from mass adoption, from bringing the normies in, or being normie friendly, or being even I think it's a product for the truly crypto native people who are in the trenches. And even then they can lose a lot of money. It's for the true degens.
So where I think this, and this reason why I'm bringing this up is because Blast just recently changed.
I was going to say that.
From layer 2 to just Blast, right?
Yeah. The Twitter handle, you mean?
The Twitter handle. And there's a guy named 0xJim that brought this up.
Yep.
I'll read his tweet. Maybe I'll share my screen.
Share screen.
Share. Blast changed their handle to Blast from Blast Layer 2, is now calling themselves the full stack chain. First rollup that we're seeing to leave Ethereum to be a standalone chain. Seems like Ethereum alignment was a meme all along. I just thought this was funny. Can can still be Ethereum aligned without being an L2. Strongest network effect present in ETH. Its OS toolchain solidity. All EVM chains contribute. Copium.
By the way, we should...
Sorry. That's so funny.
Imran, we shouldn't be laughing because this guy is in our next cohort. Imran.
Okay, I know. Okay. Oh God, I love these memes. All right, so
we should cut this.
Why? Leave it. All right, fine. He's a part of our next cohort, but he doesn't listen to our podcast, does he? I think our viewers would love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I think Santiago brought this up in Empire a couple podcasts ago, where he talked about how layer 2s aren't beholden to Ethereum, really, and that they could just become layer 1s themselves.
You know who said this first?
You did.
I did. I got so much shit with that
yeah,
tweet.
you said that. You said that on the tweet. That's right. That was like 6 months ago. And so that narrative is coming back up again, right? So Santiago mentioned it 3 months ago, and he's been tweeting about that more often. And now people on Twitter are talking about, well, this can't be.
Yeah.
But it is going to be, right?
Well, but with that Blast tweet, when I read it, I didn't think that Blast was going off of Ethereum. What I understood was that Blast tried to own the full stack, meaning not just the chain, but also the on-ramp,
the wallet,
and the wallet, which I think ultimately could offer a pretty good experience. So what I'm thinking, what Blast is doing is not becoming a layer 1. Well, I don't know either way, but what Blast is really trying to do is to go more integrated versus modular.
Solana.
Yeah, exactly. But taking a step even further than Solana, because Solana doesn't own the Solana Foundation doesn't own on-ramp or the wallet, right? It's Phantom that builds the wallet. It's MoonPay for the on-off ramp, all that stuff. But Blast wants to own the full experience.
I think it's a novel approach. Like no one has really done this.
Yeah.
And I think generally speaking, layer 2s that want to ultimately compete and win against everyone else will have to, like, by definition, become a layer 1. Like, maybe they're not going to go out and say that they're going to detach from Ethereum or whatever, but their actions speak louder than words, right? And I think naturally speaking, this is going to happen anyways.
I think it's going to happen. I mean, it already happened with DYDX.
Yeah.
So it's not new.
It's not new.
There's no reason for the layer 2s to leak the economics to the layer 1 instead of owning everything.
Yep. 100% agreed. So I just think that's going to happen. But then what is Ethereum, right? Like, if you think about it, is Ethereum just really the ideology is to push EVM to the masses, right? To developers. And EVM is really what aligns some sort of narrative back to Ethereum. Like, I mean, Cosmos is the same thing with the Tendermint, right? Like, a lot of layer 1s are using Tendermint as an example, and the Cosmos SDK. But there is no actual value going back to Atom holders, right? And with Solana,
Ethereum is different. Ethereum is different.
Well, why?
Because the layer 2s, they pay a fee to the layer 1. So if Ether does capture the economic value from the layer 2s,
right? For now, right? But that could change in the future.
Yeah, but I think there will always be a place for Ethereum layer 1.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's going to be projects like DYDX that will move away from Ethereum. Maybe Blast will move away from Ethereum, maybe.
Right.
But Ethereum will always be a place
the
for
canonical
launch.
source.
It'll always be a settlement layer. Like,
yeah,
it's not black and white, right? Some projects will want to own the full experience for their users and the full economic capture, and others are newer. They're startups. They need to rely on a battle tested settlement layer.
So what? So are we saying a canary chain? Ethereum is a canary chain of a settlement layer, and then over time, if they become, to the point if they become big enough, then they could move off of.
They need to first launch their layer 2, and then
Yeah.
If they become even bigger and want to capture everything, then they become their own chain.
Well, if you think about it, like Fantasy already talked about this, Top Fantasy, the app on Blast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Travis tweeted this out. I'm not saying this per word for word, but he said something in the order of, if we get tens and thousands of users, we will have our own layer, right? Yep. And so I'm sure like Pac-Man read this and is like, well, I need to capture, like I need them to stay within the Blast ecosystem, right? Yep. So eventually the way I see this happening is very natural. Like I don't think layer 3s is the right solution. I think the layer 2s will need to become layer 1s of some sort. And then the apps that are built underneath will have to become like layer 2s of some sort.
Yeah.
Is the way I see
you know what I was thinking this morning related to this?
Yeah.
What is the most obvious product in crypto that probably should have their own chain but hasn't?
Oh, product,
app, like something that people use. Like what is the thing that should have their own chain but hasn't?
Uniswap?
The thing that I'm thinking of is even bigger than Uniswap. By the way, I don't think Uniswap should be their own chain. Uniswap doesn't actually make sense to me because Uniswap is the core financial infrastructure. But anyway, the thing I'm thinking of is even bigger than Uniswap. It's USDT, stablecoins.
Stablecoins.
Why shouldn't stablecoins have their own chain instead of leaking the fees to the underlying layer 1?
Well, isn't what Circle has CCIP, right?
Yeah, but that's a bridge.
It's a bridge, but that's where. So what you're arguing is you want apps to be built on their like you're talking about app value accrual,
right?
Okay.
Like I'm talking about like the fact that USDT and USDC are so prevalent and make so much money and have so many users, have such a big distribution. Why would they leak the fees to the layer 1?
Well, they could destroy the app ecosystems on other chains, right? And
they could. So they're going to leave some percentage of the existing stablecoins on other chains. But for those who are doing pure payment, like me sending USDC to you, why should that USDC be settled on Ethereum versus being settled on a Circle chain, right? Why aren't they they must be thinking about launching a layer 1?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I think they should just be the best custodians of the US dollar and make it available everywhere and anywhere.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. They need to be available everywhere on every chain, but there's no reason why they shouldn't have their own chain as well.
They're just going to compete with Solana. They're going to compete with a part of this is also like, having worked at like large corporate companies, like when you have like developer tooling as an example, you build like things that start to create enemies, it causes a big problem. And so having a hero product in the early stages, like what Farcaster is doing, with Warpcast as an example, makes sense. But in this stage, I feel like if you create more enemies, then the companies will just go aside with USDT or the other. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Hey, speaking of Farcaster, I didn't speak with that guy, but I think you or David did. But he was it Sid? Might have been Sid.
The bot. Sid.
The Coinbase engineer.
Yes.
He said, was it him or his co-founder? He said there's basically 2 social platforms that developers build on top of, and the West is really into Farcaster, and the East is really into Telegram, Ton.
Okay. The East meaning, I think, Eastern Europe.
But also China.
Okay. Eastern Europe and China. India is all in on Farcaster.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying this, because I met a guy who he's African native. He moved to Atlanta, so I met him in person, and he's building on top of Farcaster, and I was really surprised, because I thought Farcaster was US West Coast kind of thing, but now it's Africa, it's India, so it's pretty impressive.
I mean, I'll be very honest. Like all the founders I've talked to, okay, look, I think Farcaster is still very early stage, right? I think they need Dan and team are working tremendously well. I just think they're just on the earlier stage, and there are a lot of developers that want to build on Farcaster. I just don't know whether the timing is right or not, right?
Yeah.
We just need to get some breakout clients with users, and then I think all the stuff that people are trying to build will click perfectly. But I could be wrong. And maybe it's someone that comes in out of nowhere that builds a great client that gets millions of users, right? I don't know. But it just seems that we're a little earlier on all the growth that they're getting from the developer standpoint.
Yeah. I was just really impressed by how, the guy that I spoke with, how ideologically aligned he was with Farcaster and the idea of an open social platform that you can build any clients on top of.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of like opening the gateway, right? Having used Facebook or Instagram or TikTok for decades, and you're like, finally, there's something that I could work and put something into it and build something of my own. Yeah. Okay. So I want to not slightly pivot, but I was reading about alt tech.
What's alt tech?
Alternative tech.
Okay.
And alternative tech is a new sub-industry that's growing that is ultimately providing products that YouTube, Facebook, Google can't. Okay. So an example of this is Trump, right? Trump has Truth Social. That's part of alt tech. And the reason why Trump uses Truth Social, it's like essentially a Twitter client, but it's purely for the right. Kick is another platform. It's a streaming platform that's growing. Like they started in 2020 and they're growing. I forgot that I'll pull up the numbers in a bit, but they're growing incredibly fast. And the reason for this is because it's a streaming platform where the rules they're not as strict as YouTube. So maybe you could say profanity words, or you could do certain things that you cannot on YouTube, but it's still buttoned up.
Yeah.
So a lot of the streamers, so if you know like Kai Cenat or iShowSpeed and Adin Ross, who are like the top 3 streamers of all time in gaming, a lot of them are taking the deals from Kick and then moving over to Kick because YouTube won't give them the support that's needed. And so I think Kick was Peter Thiel invested in Kick. Peter Thiel invested in Truth Social, right? So this whole alternative tech, and there's a couple other platforms that are growing really fast. I have a list of startups. I'll share it with you in a second.
Even 4chan is a little bit like Kick, but it's like a Reddit.
Yeah.
Right? But more profanity and pornography and stuff like that.
Yep. And so this Parler was one that we talked about. Truth Social. So here we are. Parler, Truth.
I invested in Parler. I remember this.
Yes, Kanye bought it, right, or something.
Yeah, I exited at like 3x or something. It was a good investment.
Yeah.
But the idea was the same as Truth, which is that it tries to appeal to a segment of the population that's politically underrepresented by the existing Twitter and stuff like that.
So I do think we're going through a shift also, that now that the whole world is online, or most of the world is online, not saying everyone's online, everyone has different ideologies. Everyone has different ways that they think and they align with politically or religiously, etc. And right now, all of these platforms that we're using are mostly generalized.
Yeah.
And so I could see a world, and this alt tech industry is really small right now, very small. But I do think alt tech is going to become a very big industry in the next 10 years. And crypto can play a very big part in this, primarily because you have like standards like Farcaster that's building this kind of open social graph, right? And you could use this as a way to build very focused client experiences, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think there's a play for crypto, but I am bullish. I'm very bullish alt tech.
But okay, just to push back a little on that. Yeah. I was thinking the other day about in what world would Threads, remember Threads?
Threads
from Instagram. In what world would Threads win? And it occurred to me that the culture on Threads is very different from the culture on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that again, that goes back to when I said Elon is bringing Twitter from the left more towards the middle over the last few years, whereas Instagram and Threads are very, very leftist.
100%, which is a part of alt tech, right? Funny enough, when I searched for alt tech, guess what comes under alt tech now?
What is it?
Twitter. X.
Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Twitter is actually, I was actually surprised by seeing this, but Twitter is not alt tech.
Wait, I mean, what did you search for?
I just type in alt tech, and then I clicked on Wikipedia, and you go down to, there's a list of startups. I just saw it somewhere. Here we are. You go down to platforms, and you could see X under microblogging.
Okay. Did you see there was a tweet about how Wikipedia was, really infest, how I'm trying to pick the right word in order to not to piss off the liberals.
Infest DEIs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wikipedia, apparently, there was a tweet about Wikipedia's internal culture being very Google-like. And so, like, when I read this Alltech article, he's like, it's Alltech is a collection of social networking services popular among the alt-right, far-right, and others.
The way I see, okay, my definition of alt-tech is different than the Wikipedia's definition of alt-tech. My definition of alt-tech is just alternative tech. Alternative, you build alternative viewpoints or alignments that enable a group of users to get together, right?
Yeah.
And one of them is alt-right.
But what I'm annoyed about is that Wikipedia is subconsciously trying to associate alt with right. Like for Wikipedia, at least for the author of this article, right is alternative. And the left is the
correct.
The correct. And Twitter is part of alt-tech.
It's so funny because if you go to, I think Wikipedia's definition of alt-tech is actually incorrect. This is so bad.
This is crazy. Like,
this is insane.
They put Twitter in the same category as Parler and Gap and Truth Social.
And PewDoo, or PewDoo.
PewTube.
This is wrong, man. Alt-tech. Because if you go to Kick Stream, if you go to their Wikipedia, which is how because I did a lot of research over the weekend around like alternative tech.
Yeah.
And it does a really good job, at least Kick's Wikipedia does a really good job of discussing this new genre. And it put it under this new alternative tech category.
Speaking of which, I remember another video of JD Vance. He said it was about AI. And he said that the mainstream popular AI platforms like ChatGPT and others are left-leaning, which I think is factually correct.
Yeah.
And I see no issue with that. But he said that the issue is that the right is underrepresented, and that's okay. That's okay as well. But then he said the solution to that is open source. The solution to political bias in AI platforms is open source. I was really impressed.
Wow. So he's on the Meta's camp then, right? With Llama 3. Got it. Impressive. Very impressive. Are you still using ChatGPT more often? I've seen Twitter pivot to Claude. I'm curious if you've used Claude. I've started using Claude. I still like ChatGPT more, but I'm curious on...
So you know what I use? So ChatGPT, I use ChatGPT to do two things. One is correct my grammar, and two, coding. ChatGPT is a really good coding co-pilot. But I started using Perplexity. So ever since Druckenmiller started showing Perplexity on CNBC, I started using Perplexity more, and I was really impressed. So Perplexity is a really good teacher on a variety of topics. I read about like energy, the upcoming electricity crisis, like metals, batteries, all these things on Perplexity. It's really good. And the best thing about it is it gives you the source of the information. So it links the original source when you prompt Perplexity. So you know that you can be pretty confident that it's not hallucinating.
Yeah. Give me a second. So, okay, got it. I was just checking out Perplexity site. Yeah, so Claude is developed by Anthropic.
Mm-hmm.
And Perplexity's... what's Perplexity's? Is it just Perplexity?
Perplexity AI.
Perplexity AI. Okay. And then there's ChatGPT, and then from OpenAI. Okay. Yeah, I'll test out Perplexity, but Claude is not bad. It's I've seen some improvements over ChatGPT, but I'd like to try Perplexity. Okay. So there's a tweet. So Yujia from our last batch, she's building the Mirage, which is a fully on-chain game. I really like this game.
They call it the autonomous world now. That's the new meta.
I got it. Can you explain? No,
it means the same thing, just the new word.
Okay.
Because Onchain, like fully Onchain gaming versus autonomous world, like which one sounds more sexy?
Okay, well, she wrote an article yesterday, which I want to talk about. But think of the Mirage. It's actually a fun game. It's a PWA app, and what you do is you get a plot of land, and you could build stuff. Think of like Civilization, right? You build stuff, or SimCity or something. You build stuff, and then you can collect yield in the form of production of whatever you're building. So if you're building a factory, you're earning fruits, as an example, or something like a gold coin. And this yield then you could track your yield, and you have shares of the land itself. So people can buy and sell shares. So if you're bullish on someone's land production, you could buy or sell the shares of that land. Mm-hmm. You could also go to another land and steal their crops, right? So you could buy, sell, you could steal.
Sounds like Farmville.
Like Farmville, right?
Yeah.
It's a combination of like different
Farmville,
things.
SimCity.
Yeah. And so like if you're bullish on someone, you could buy and earn some dividends, as an example, right? And so that's kind of the gameplay that I'm explaining. Now, she wrote an article yesterday, and she talked about autonomous worlds. And she said that people come into on-chain gaming because the notion of building permanent games and protocols is intellectually interesting, but it isn't what brings games to the masses, obviously, right? And what she learned through her journey as a founder was the fact that speculation is inherently good if you use it the right way, and that it could be a great tool to bring virality to the product that you're building, which is on-chain gaming. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because most on-chain gamers won't talk about this. That world is so research heavy and niche that if you bring up anything to do with the token or speculation, they shun you forever.
You're talking about the Ethereum core community, basically.
Yeah, sure. And or in this case, the autonomous worlds community, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I actually learned this recently, but a lot of the autonomous world community is tightly linked and funded by the core Ethereum Foundation community.
Yes.
There's a very tight relationship between them because the Ethereum core community, the core, the Vatican of Ethereum, they don't want anything to do with speculation. They hate speculation.
Yeah.
And they want to fund things that are non-speculative, at least on paper, and autonomous world is one of those. But to your point, the Primodium guys also said the same thing. They tweeted about this a month ago. So Primodium is another autonomous world or fully on-chain gaming startup that we funded that later got funded by Paradigm as well. He said the exact same thing, that originally he thought building on-chain games is about allowing third-party developers to build mods on top of it. But what's really happening in reality is that that's not what users want. What users want is to make money, is to speculate, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, like we have two founders that independently came to the same conclusion.
So I do think the future of on-chain gaming, if it was to survive this phase, will have to lean on gamification, mobile first experience, and speculation.
But I still think the third party, the mods, the mods, I think that stuff will still come. It's just
will come.
It's not it shouldn't be the thing that's front and center in the first phase. The first phase is build something that people want.
Exactly.
And then later you can think about composability, data sovereignty, all that stuff.
She also said one more thing. She's like, as starting out as a founder, building, you don't need to fully bring everything on chain, right? She said she learned it the hard way, and that you could bring some things on chain and some things off chain, like randomness and like additional features could be off chain, and the core game logic could be on chain. Yeah. And then this will give founders the ability to iterate faster as well, which I think is true, right? Like if you want to iterate and continue building what users want, then try to keep as much of it off chain as possible in the short term. Get to a point where you have product market fit, then start to introduce on chain over time.
I feel like that basically converges to the Ronin Axie parent nation philosophy, which is building games that are not ideologically, about putting everything on chain, putting all the states on chain, all the logic on chain, but only the stuff that's useful. Only a small amount of the game logic on chain. And they have a lot of users. Pirate Nations have a lot of users.
They do.
Pixels as well.
Yeah, I've played the Pixels. Yeah, I mean, it's
not
pretty
for
much. No, have you played it? No, I'm just talking about the onboarding process. It's like a very Web2 onboarding process. It's very it's very simple and easy. The crypto component isn't as clear to me from what I played. You sign in with the wallet, but that's it. And then everything else is just like kind of Web2. Maybe that's a route. I don't know. Maybe the last thing I want to talk about is on and off ramps. I don't know if you've seen my tangents I've been going on the past few.
It takes 7 minutes and like gazillion steps to on ramp.
I mean, it was such a horrible experience. I mean, I went through Phantom because that's the primary app that people use, right? To buy shitcoins. There's 3 options that they had. Maybe I can share my tweet, but yeah, I think I'll share my tweet. Give me a second. Here we go. So high level, I conducted a 10-minute experiment to validate the crypto on-ramps. So I downloaded Phantom, and then it gave me 3 options: Coinbase, Mezzo, and MoonPay. Here are my results. And it only allowed me to use a debit card. It took me 2 minutes, roughly 2 minutes and 6 steps to get $48.48 onto my wallet. Mezzo was 3 minutes, 7 steps, about $47. MoonPay, for some reason, I was flagged for something, and I wasn't able to add my card. But it took 5 minutes, 13 steps.
Imran, but like to push back on this, like this is not any different from onboarding to Robinhood, for example. Have you tried onboarding to it's?
Yes, I've tried all of it. Yeah. But that's also a problem though, because the thing is, if we're going to have millions of crypto apps that all want you to onboard and bridge money, then it has to be done in a very simple and easy way. So what I'm getting at, my thought process here is like, we're putting in hundreds of $1 million into infrastructure. Why can't we fix onboarding?
But my point is, I don't know how we can fix it, because you have to do, as a user, you have to do the whole KYC shit, which is very annoying. But no one can solve this. Like you have to.
I don't think we have. I think so. I'm bringing this up because there is no way. Like, I went through an onboarding process with my wife. She's never onboarded a crypto. Just yesterday, and she was by the 10th step, she was annoyed, and she's like, "Forget it. I don't want to do this."
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at here is I'm shining a light in this, because if we want to get 100, so people that are incentivized will go through all the hoops and loops to buy some Solana because they want to make 100x, whatever. But if we want to get like actual apps in front of millions or billions of people, it has to be as simple as downloading TikTok and Facebook.
Okay, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't think there's any way around it.
I think there is where I'm getting at. I think there is a way.
But how do you get around KYC, the insane number of steps of inputting your personal information, your address, proof of address, all that stuff? You have to do that, all that stuff.
So I went through Cash App experience as an example, and the Cash App experience embedded the KYC process directly within the app. Okay.
What does that mean?
So right now, all the KYC process is on a widget that's from a third party processor.
Oh, you mean like on MoonPay?
Yeah.
You do the KYC on MoonPay rather than on Phantom.
Exactly. So I think the first way to solve this is by embedding and owning that experience firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second is like, there needs to be so once you have that, I think that solves one of the problems. 2 is the onboarding can be easier. Okay. So I was talking to the founder of Mezzo as an example, who's one of the on-ramps I've talked to all the on-ramps, by the way, after that tweet. And I've learned and understood, there's a lot of problems that's plaguing on and off ramps. There's a lot of it. And they're all getting to that point where they're trying to fix it. But one example is like fraud, chargebacks is a very big problem in crypto, right? And so they have to have like some sort of fraud system, and that costs a lot of money, as an example.
I mean, so that means they'll never support credit cards.
Well, that also because credit cards are very expensive for crypto. So you pay 20% just to it's predatory using credit cards.
Who is it Visa and MasterCard that charge 20% because of the amount of fraud, like probability of fraud?
I'm not sure. It's just classified. It's not classified as a service or good.
Okay.
And because of that classification, there's a very high fee that people have to pay just to use credit card to buy crypto asset.
Okay.
Which I think should be solved. Like Visa, MasterCard should reclass. Like when you go into the rabbit hole, there's a lot of problems. The credit card crypto should be reclassified as something else, right? So that is cheaper for credit card onboarding. Credit card fraud, Sardine's the only company that offers like fraud protection. So there needs to be a better way or a cheaper way of doing this. The UI UX should be embedded, and the steps taken to, okay, my thought process is this. You don't, in the US at least, you don't have to technically KYC AML under $3,000 a year, right? But there's fraud and chargebacks, and that's one of the reasons why they KYC. So, like, is there a way where you can on-ramp someone for $10, as an example, without KYCing? And then once they get the hit and they see the effect, could they then go through the KYC process and then get more money into their app? Like, there's another feature that somebody threw out, like maybe rebate, right? Like maybe give them a $50 credit on their app or something, and they can't cash out until, they bridge money or on-ramp money. I feel like there has to be something here that makes, like, you should download the app, and in 60 seconds, you should be able to use a crypto app, is the way I think we're going to get to mass adoption.
I just remember when I onboarded to Robinhood, I was as annoyed as I've ever used any crypto app. Like, I just don't feel there's that much improvement you can make on the crypto side, because you'll be annoyed anyway. I was extremely annoyed with Robinhood.
But then how do you like, if you were to sign into your held crypto app and you have to go through that process again, or if you and to bridge some money, as an, like, you and I will use Coinbase and bridge money. I don't care about you and I, but I care about the person that we're trying to get into a held crypto app, as an example, or another app, or like, if we think crypto apps are going to be as ubiquitous as other app ecosystems, then there needs to be some sort of core logic that sits, whether it's you KYC one as an identity and you port that identity across all of these app ecosystems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you make it so cheap and fast, within 60 seconds you can onboard and you're done, right? But I'm shining a light in this because, everyone's all talking about now. It looks like the market is swinging from infra to crypto apps.
No. There's going to be TEE and FHE.
We should have talked about that, or we could talk about that.
Let's talk about that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna pull at Imran and go to the restroom again.
Bro, I'm gonna make a coffee. So yeah, I guess ending on the last topic, I think we could bring in at least an order of magnitude better experience onboarding wise, and that should open up the door for more users to come into crypto. Maybe it's using Coinbase's smart accounts. Maybe that's the wedge, but there needs to be something that needs to be solved here. Otherwise, it's just a circle jerk. It's just a circle jerk. But yeah, go ahead. You had you recently went down the ZK FHE TE rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You and I spoke to a few founders, I remember, when we were in New York a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do a quick overview on what's happening and then go from there.
I wouldn't say I'm that deep into it, but I understand enough about these technologies. So recently I spent a few days with one of the founders I've known for a long time who operates in the ZK space. So he got me up to date with what's happening in ZK. So I'm just looking at my notes and I'll just share what I've learned. So, okay, number one, he thinks that ZK rollups will likely use the zkEVMs. So some of the zkEVMs you may have heard of are Succinct, Risk Zero, Nexus. Nexus is one of the companies that went through Alliance.
A16Z came up with theirs, right?
And A16Z came up with Jolt. But I'll talk about Jolt in a bit as well. And so the point is the ZK rollups will likely use those zkEVMs that are general purpose, but slower than like the more specialized zkEVMs, because and this tied to what remember what Vitalik said about type 1, type 2, type 3. Like basically different spectrum of EVM compatibility and speed trade-off.
Yeah, so it's like bytecode compatibility, right? And then all the way down to, what was the fifth one? The fourth?
It doesn't matter. The point is zkEVMs, they're not specialized, but they're compatible with a lot of existing tooling. So you can code in Rust or C++ or whatever language that you feel comfortable with in this on this zkEVM. But the trade-off that it's making is it's probably slower than those specialized zkEVMs. And in fact, I think a couple months ago, was it Polygon? Polygon announced a partnership with Succinct, where they basically moved away from their previous effort.
Polygon moved, yeah,
it was Polygon, right? They moved away from their previous effort of building something, a zk rollup that's more specialized, but less compatible with existing tooling and faster, to Succinct, which is more compatible, more developer friendly, a little bit slower. So we're already seeing some trend into that direction.
And when you say slow, like what does that translate to?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much slower, but I doubt it's more than an order of magnitude. It's probably within the same order of magnitude in terms of speed. So that's one, like zkEVMs are probably real. So that's one thing. Another thing I learned was, okay, so this might get a little bit contentious, but among the zk rollups, zkSync is better than Starknet, is better than Polygon zkEVM.
Oh, and this is coming from...
This is coming from him, not from me. And he's not involved in one of any of these ecosystems. So he's a fairly neutral person. And he ranks this in terms of developer friendliness, in terms of speed, in terms of whether or not the product is even ready, right? So that's another thing. Another thing he said was among the zkEVMs, Succinct is ahead of risk zero. So you, like when you're on Twitter, when you're on zk Twitter, you hear like all these different projects shitting on each other, but he thinks that Succinct is ahead of risk zero. Okay. And these two are the top two right now.
And what makes Succinct stand out from risk zero?
I don't remember the exact details, but it's definitely about speed. I don't know what causes Succinct to be faster than risk zero, but his main benchmark here was speed. And also there's Jolt in the picture as well. So Jolt is the existing Z1. So apparently Jolt is faster than even Succinct, but for some reason it can't settle on the EVM yet due to some like elliptic curve incompatibility. So Jolt on paper is faster, but it's impractical at the moment. Again, like a lot of things I'm saying come from this, I guess, friend of mine. And it's probably going to be very contentious, but I'm just relaying the information that I learned. Okay, here's another interesting fact. So most of the improvements in zk, in terms of speed, come from fundamental mathematical improvements. And that speed of improvement has been faster than Moore's law. So if you think about it, like the speed of improvement when it comes to zk latency and speed, like execution speed, can come from a couple of things. It can come from the math improving or the hardware improving. And that's pretty much it. And he's saying that over the last few years, the mathematical improvements have been much, much faster than the improvement in hardware, which is basically Moore's law. Yeah. Moore's law says like every couple of years, the speed goes up by 2x while maintaining the same cost. Okay, another one that's interesting is that there's a bunch of zk hardware startups that build ASICs. So the idea is so ASICs are very specialized hardware that does one set of computes. In this case, computes for zk. So ASICs are faster than software or even FPGA, which is another type of hardware. But the downside is you cannot program it. It's not programmable, right? So once the ASIC is built, you cannot change the logic anymore. So that's the trade-off that ASICs are making. But so these ASIC hardware companies, there's a lot of them, but the startup cost is massive. So apparently they have to pay something like $10 million flat fee to TSM, which is Taiwan Semiconductor Company, which is also behind NVIDIA and all these AI chip companies. a $10 million flat fee, regardless of how many chips you want to produce. So there's a huge startup cost. And it's unclear whether or not the economics will work because you don't need that many zk ASICs. It's not like AI chips. Like everyone buys so many AI chips, and but zk.
But those are multi-purpose, right? This is more singular.
Exactly. The AI chips are well. I mean, it's multi-purpose in the sense that the final model can be used for a lot of things, right? But zk right now you use it for zkEVMs, zk rollups, those zk coprocessors, right? Anoma, all these things. So yeah, so it's a little bit niche. So it's pretty unclear whether or not these zk hardware companies have good economics. And that's pretty much it. I guess the most contentious take that he had was that zkSync is ahead of Starknet, is ahead of Polygon zkEVM, and succinct is ahead of RISC-0.
In what sense?
Well, for RISC-0 and succinct is speed.
Well, that I understand.
Yeah.
But zkSync, Starknet, and Polygon.
That is, well, it just tells me that Polygon zkEVM doesn't even work. And
but I mean, didn't like Ton and
I think that's work in progress. Ton, there's
Ton, Ronin, Immutable X that all just announced CDK support.
Is the zkEVM actually live? I don't think it's live.
I don't think it's live. Yeah. So it's a work in progress. Okay.
Yeah, but zkSync and Starknet are both live, I believe.
zkSync is live, and obviously Starknet. Yeah, I see. So he's going based on what's live.
He's going based on just general stage of development.
Okay.
Like, not saying one team is better than the other. It's just like who's ahead of others in terms of technology, and that meaning whether
usage.
Whether the product is live and whether it's fast and cheap, basically.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair to say.
Okay, so that's zk, and then we started talking about zk versus FHE and TE, and that's really interesting because there's a new meta around FHE and TE, if you noticed. So FHE stands for fully homomorphic encryption, and TEE stands for trusted execution environment. And there's also zk. And there's a lot of confusion around these. I don't claim that I'm an expert, but I think that I understand enough now. So all these three are somewhat related to privacy. And it sounds like they're competitive, right? Like everyone talks about TE being, TE and FHE and zk, they all provide some sort of privacy in one way or another. So it sounds like they're competitive. And there was actually a tweet the other day about how FHE, which is this new shiny thing, coming for zk's launch. Like there's a lot of discussions around those, but there's some nuance. And the nuance is, again, this doesn't come from me, but the sources and this friend that I've been talking to, zk is actually not a good technology for privacy. And the only reason why people associate zk with privacy is because of Zcash. Because zk is the first industrial use of zk was in Zcash, and Zcash is a privacy coin. But there's a fundamental reason why zk works in Zcash, but not necessarily for more Turing-complete smart contract languages or smart contract platforms. Which is that in zk, the privacy in Zcash, the use case is a single player use case. So
and they have different channels, right?
I have some asset, and I send it to someone else. So me, I'm the only player that's doing something. I'm just sending something from my own account. But with the more advanced smart contracts, right? For example, a swap. Can you do a dark pool with zk? Because a swap involves two players exchanging assets, right? So for use cases like this, zk is actually very hard to use zk for privacy, to ensure privacy. To ensure that the amount, the name of the token, and the sender, the recipients are fully protected in terms of privacy. So ultimately, the short is that zk cannot do privacy for multiplayer state transitions. Now, that's where FHE comes in, because FHE is actually really good at ensuring privacy for multiplayer scenarios. because what FHE does. So in contrast to zk, what FHE does is the input FHE is data that's already encrypted. It's already private. Yeah. Whereas zk doesn't take private data. zk actually takes public data and does some magic, right? So FHE takes data that's already encrypted, and then FHE can do compute over already encrypted private data. So FHE fundamentally can achieve.
It's private in nature.
It's private in nature.
Yeah.
So now the downside of FHE is that it's extremely slow. It's actually like, so if you run a computation within FHE versus a computation that's fully public on like a fully public smart contracts, it's like 5 or 6 orders of magnitude slower.
But it makes sense though, because the data is known on the zk side and the data is unknown on the zk side.
No, I'm not comparing. Right now, I'm not comparing FHE and zk. I'm comparing FHE and the completely public normal smart contract compute or a completely public compute. And FHE is 5 or 6 orders of magnitude slower. So that is the trade-off that FHE is making.
But this is purely for this is if we want privacy apps, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. If we want multi-party privacy apps within FHE. Now, when you hear that, you're saying to yourself maybe that, oh, hey, FHE is actually just better than zk. And it's actually not. It's different. So FHE is not really about provable compute, but zk is. Like if you think about what zk rollup really is, you do some compute off chain and you can prove that the compute was done correctly and you post the results on chain. So zk fundamentally is really about provable compute, but FHE is not really about provable compute because ultimately you're trusting that the node that's running the FHE compute, right? You're still trusting that node that does the compute.
Right.
So that's the difference between FHE and zk. zk is about provable compute and FHE is actually about encrypted data, compute over encrypted data. So if you think about what I said, it's actually possible to combine zk and FHE. Like it's actually possible to do zk FHE, meaning you do compute over encrypted data and you can prove that the compute that you did is correct.
I mean, wouldn't that just add time?
That will add latency? Another 5 or 6 order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Because zk itself is orders of magnitude slower.
Would you see here? Are you talking about doing provable compute and privacy? Yep. Is that how you think about like how they could work together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it sounds good on paper, but it's basically impractical.
Yeah.
zk FHE is basically impractical. But what I'm just illustrating the difference between zk and FHE. ZK
so you're saying that they could work together. They're not direct competitors.
Yeah. zk is about provable compute, and FHE is about compute over encrypted data. Yeah. Okay, and now there's a third meta that's up and coming, like everyone's talking about it, which is TEE.
Man, I feel like we're going through like 2017 all over again, or whatever it was. Remember when these 3 metas with like SGXs and what was it? The TE app when they did the ICO in 2017. Do you remember those guys?
I don't.
I'll get the name shortly. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what TE is compute within a trusted piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Such as SGX, Intel SGX, right? And one of the purposes of doing that within a trusted piece of hardware is privacy. So TE does enable more privacy. So if you really think about it, like, people say TE is going after zk's launch, but TE is actually a little bit more competitive to FHE than it is to zk.
The difference is though that TE is faster, right?
TE is way faster.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is you are trusting the hardware manufacturer,
which has its own set of issues. Do you remember back in the day they had some faulty code or something that could make it easy to attack the SGX? I remember something to do with there was malicious code with SGX, there's faulty code with SGX.
They're having a lot of issues with TE.
Yeah.
So yes, in theory, it provides more privacy, but there's potentially higher trust assumptions.
Yeah.
So your data could ultimately end up getting leaked if the SGX.
And this happened before. Data has gotten
it has happened.
before.
It has happened before.
I remember this.
Yeah. So that's the trade-off between TEE and FHE. Another trade-off that I don't fully understand, someone that the founder of Seismic, which is in our next cohort, they're building a private privacy chain or shielded chain. He said that another trade-off that between TEE and FHE is that within TEE you can do more composability, and within FHE you can't. I don't fully understand that. I'm just relaying the information. But anyway, so that's the high level. Let me summarize my understanding. TEE and FHE are more competitive to each other. They're both about privacy, but there's different trade-offs in terms of trust assumptions and speed. Whereas zk fundamentally is about provable compute rather than privacy.
Now the question is, to me, it seems like all of these, maybe I'd say TE and FHE, are more similar in nature. What types of apps could we see built? Are they going to enable new use cases?
In theory, you can build dark pools with FHE and TEE. In practice, I don't know how that'll work. You can do fog of war in Onchain games, but again, that's super theoretical. So fog of war meaning like there is a game that's information asymmetric. One player doesn't know all the information about the other, and vice versa. Whereas a game of chess, for example, there's no fog of war. Everyone knows all the information available to play the game. So that's another example. So we'll have to see. I think everything is super theoretical at this point.
Yeah, cool. Just switching topics here a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen. I don't know, we may have to cut this, but I'm going to share it anyways. Wolrdcoin, prioritizing simplicity helps build forever human. zkEVMs, prioritizing simplicity, allowing insiders to continue to profit over scam token while LARPing as if you build tools for humanity. The Wolrdcoin is hiding my reply. Now they unhid it after being called out.
Yeah, I don't like what Wolrdcoin is doing with.
I don't like it either. I just feel like.
I mean, the founder literally said on a podcast that they're doing this on purpose, like they're doing the high FTV, low float thing on purpose.
Yeah, they are, and which is why like just going back to our earlier point, a lot of the VC-backed coins are becoming tainted. And when they become tainted, you see this in public discourse on Twitter. No one wants to touch it anymore. And so it's becoming more like ideological in the sense that, meme coins and tokens are completely free floating, should be for the community.
Okay, so I understand that. And I think that's slowly becoming consensus.
Yes.
But there's two things that could potentially move things back into a good state. And these two things are, number one, like we said before, there is a higher chance now that ICOs come back. With ICOs, retail will be more likely, more able to participate in early stage deals and get the upside. So that's a good thing. Another thing I'm seeing is that the tier one centralized exchanges, especially Binance, are becoming increasingly reluctant to list every coin in the universe. They're being extremely selective. And it makes sense for them because the more tokens they list, the more attention and liquidity fragments, and the more new listings go down. And ultimately, if new listings go down, it hurts the exchange because the users will churn, right? So they're being extremely selective. And we talked about this before. I'm still surprised that Blast doesn't have a Binance listing. Like Blast is the most high-profile infra token of the year so far, I think, and they're not on Binance. So I think that tells me something. I think those high FTV, low float things will have a harder and harder time because of the simple fact that Binance is more reluctant.
I like the Hasib from Dragonfly put a post out, which I agree with the most. This whole high FTV, low float bullshit, like, everyone has their own way of solving it. Let the market will solve it on its own, was his, which I agree with. Like, you can't solve this. This is a market structure issue, and goes from founders all the way to VCs and people that are buying on the public markets, and let the market figure it out. And the way I think the market's going to figure it out is the attention is just going to move away from these coins, and founders are going to continue releasing these coins publicly. They may not get bid or attention or whatever. And eventually, over time, the ones that have strong fundamentals, that have strong value, people will end up buying it, and they'll see the narrative over time. And this gives retail a chance to buy it at a lower price because they see the value. The hedge funds, lower price. And then eventually, over time, they'll just scoop it up and the narrative will kick off on its own. So I could see that being a major like windfall of all of the different changes that are happening from a market structure perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's happened to Blast, I think, if you look at it. So I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, speaking of coins with the real fundamentals, we talked about DeFi coins on our last episode, but I still think about it because, like, up until recently, I felt like the only tokens that are institutional ready were layer ones, and there aren't that many of them that have real product market fit. I think so far it's just Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. And then during the episode, we started looking at the price, the PS ratio, the PF ratio, whatever it's called, the price to revenue ratio of some of the DeFi coins. And I came to the realization that there's actually a handful of DeFi coins that are probably institutional ready too. Like we now have a new segment, a new asset class, sub-asset class within crypto that is institutional ready. And these are like the likes of Maker, Aave, even Aerodrome, Velodrome. They're extremely cheap.
Yeah.
Like Uniswap is a great project, but I don't think it's that cheap yet.
But it has a good narrative. I mean, I would classify under institutional ready, but obviously it's cheap. Value-wise, the top three that you mentioned.
Yeah. Value-wise, like Maker, Aave, Velodrome, Aerodrome. What was the other one? There's one more.
Maker, Aave, Lido,
Jito. Like I looked at some of these ratios, and they like Jupiter probably is in that category too. Like these valuation ratios are in line with what you see in public tech stocks.
Yeah,
and by public tech stocks, I mean like the Magnificent Seven. I'm not even talking about the long tail of non-profitable tech stocks. Like the Magnificent Seven, their PE ratio is in the 20s, 30s. And you can easily argue that those DeFi coins are there. You could easily argue that their ratio should be higher because crypto is much higher growth than those Mag 7, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
And maybe this is the path forward for all coins that are launching in crypto.
Yeah.
You have this, huge boom, right, of DeFi, and obviously DeFi summer. And that's usually where the market gets ahead of itself and says, this is the future, right? And really, now we're gone through the whole life cycle, right? And now we see that, most of the protocols that stuck are cash flow positive. And this is a narrative that's going to take them to the next level, right?
Yep.
I think NFTs are the same way, right? NFTs went through this huge boom and bust cycle. And now the NFTs with the right products are going to then have its own resurgence. And so like Pudgy Penguins, we talked about as an example, maybe Doodles, etc., are going to find ways to create more value back to NFT holders.
Yep.
And so maybe meme coins, we're in the same process, right? We're going to go with this boom, bust. And then essentially we have to figure out what meme coins are actually going to do.
Yep.
But it's similar cycles.
If you really think about it, right? Like the two institutional friendly or ready sub-asset classes within crypto that I think are ready for institutions are the layer ones and DeFi for now. And if you really think about these two are the oldest asset classes, right? Yeah. And it's not a coincidence because they have been battle tested. They've been building for like 10 plus years. And finally, they're at a point where they have real cash flow and they become ready for professional investments. Yep. And this goes back to that hype chart that we talked about on the last part.
Yep. That was a good chart. Yep.
So layer ones and DeFi are further along. And then right now you have gaming, you have NFTs, and you have, what was another one? Yeah, these two are like at the rock bottom. And then you have AI, DeepIn that are going through a hype cycle. They're near the top of the hype cycle. But like I think all these different sectors at some point they're gonna go through the same thing that DeFi has gone through.
Yeah.
And the layer ones have gone through.
100% agree. So there's a company called Moonshot.money that's going to be part of our next batch. that is trying to optimize for retail adoption. And so my previous few tweets was primarily a function of putting more eyes onto onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't fully solved onboarding, but I'd say it's the best onboarding experience you'll see in crypto today. And the way you'd want to think about Moonshot.money is a crypto app for millennials, mostly Gen Zers. I'm putting millennials in there because I want to feel good about myself. But I guess we're boomers now. And the idea is that they're going to completely obfuscate away crypto. So you won't see USDC. You just see a cash balance. And then you just see meme coins. You won't even see any of the macro tokens like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. All you see is the cash balance and meme coins. And the onboarding experience, I timed it last night, was 2 minutes and like 30 seconds. And I didn't even do this. My wife did it. I had her go through the process.
That's good. Did you have to go through a KYC?
Yes. But the way, and so with KYC, we were at about 2 minutes and like 45 seconds. So almost there. It needs to be sub 1 minute. Yep. But even that process, was hard on her. But it is the best experience that you'll see in crypto today from a pure onboarding experience perspective. And so think about this, right? So she's onboarded and she has $30 in her cash balance. And then she sees all these coins. I've been using Moonshot over the past 2 weeks just to see how meme coins, the types of meme coins that they're curating versus what the market is saying about meme coins. Mm-hmm. And there's a good ratio of quality of meme coins that are listed versus not. So the thesis here is, if you could get the best quality meme coins and you can make it simple and dumb as possible to use, could we get a new generation of people buying into crypto, just purely being onboarded to meme coins? So that's the thesis with Moonshot. And I'm pretty excited about this team.
I like that they made two very unorthodox product decisions.
Yeah.
Which was really refreshing to me. One was that they don't list anything that's blue chip. No blue chip. No Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all these boomer coins.
Yeah.
Only meme coins. And the second decision they made was that oftentimes when you type in like Trump, for example, on DEX Screener, you get like 50 different Trump coins, right?
Yeah.
And that's really confusing for retail, for normies. Yeah. What they did was they only show one. I don't know exactly which one what's their methodology to pick which one to show, but they only show one. And that is really that sounds weird.
It sounds simple
and niche, but
yeah,
I think it'll play a big role. It'll make a huge impact to normie onboarding.
Funny enough, my sister-in-law I've gotten her into crypto. I pilled her back in 2013, but she always texts me like she wants to stay ahead of the meta, right? So she texted me yesterday or 2 days ago. She goes, "Hey, should I buy JD Vance?" I'm like, I didn't even think about it, right? I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, so then I went to DEX Screener or Defined and all the other places to look for JD Vance. And there was like 10 or 15 different contract addresses. I'm like, all right, I don't even know which one is the right one, right?
Yeah.
So I just went and I just then filtered by liquidity, right? And then I had to go in and check the distribution of token holders because I always get screwed over when the top 10 holders own more than 13%. If it's 20%, I always get dumped on. Always. It happened to me when I bought RFK, so I know. Then I just shared the address with her and she bought it or whatever. But this is the problem, right? Now I consider her retail and she's trying to step up her game and making money. And so she's not crypto native at all. And so she texted me and saying hey, I want to get to JD Vance. So people are already thinking about betting on people. One, interesting thought. I saw that. Two is people want to make it as easy as possible to find this person so they can buy it. And I think Moonshot solves that process. And I also think this is how DEX Screener gets unbundled. Right now DEX Screener has 50 million MAUs, whatever you want to call it. I saw a tweet somewhere that said 57 million. I'm not sure how true that is.
Come to think of it, DEX Screener is the Blockfolio of this cycle.
Yes.
Remember Blockfolio?
I remember
Back
Blockfolio.
in the day, 2017,
they
onboarded all the normies. And the only thing they did was to allow normies to allow anyone to track their portfolio. And you don't even need to connect your wallet. You just type in a number.
Yep.
You put in a ticker and a number, and it calculates the portfolio for you. And this cycle is looking up shitcoins.
Yep. And I don't think that behavior is going to change. I think shitcoins is here to stay. And so I do think DEX Screener is probably going to get unbundled. And because like if people are looking for the next next meme coin, they want an easy way to do it. And so if they can if you get the next generation's attention, then it's going to be harder for more and more people to use DEX Screener. DEX Screener is actually really complicated and hard to use for the average person. For you and I, we've been doing it for a long time. So I do feel like there's going to be an unbundling happening here where, retail apps like Moonshot will unbundle DEX Screener. You have Defined and others that are building other products that are adjacent to it that'll offer better data components. So we'll see what happens with that.
Can we just end the episode with Many Men?
Yes. Tribute to Donald Trump.
Which one do we put? The Donald Trump one or the original one?
But if you're going to do the original one, I want to see the one where Donald Trump is like walking with the song. Or we do the one with Donald Trump singing or rapping.
Oh, wait, what the hell is this? Hold on. There's a video of Trump RNC walking out to 50 Cent. But
all right,
I'll show
share the screen.
No, let me show the 50 Cent concert one.
Okay.
Here it is.
Let's do it. Video too, right?
Yeah.
Share your screen.
When I ride, something special happens every time I'm the place. Something like Ali and his mind. I woke the block with the purpose I've been out for now. Swing that out, you know, what will show your hands for my country. Got the tip when they can go ahead, lose your head. Turn it back completely, clap, lose your head. I walk around with on my waist, chip on my shoulder till I pussy flip it. Pussy, please let it know. Many man, many man. It's death for me, Lord. I don't cry no more. Don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me. Have mercy on my soul. Something my heart turned cold. Have mercy on me, man. Many men. It's death for me.
Now the question is, as you were growing up, did you ever listen to 50 Cent?
Of course.
Okay, just making sure.
I put Many Men on repeat for the whole day, the day after the Let me show you this.
Oh man, was there a token?
I'm sure there's gotta be one. There's gotta be one.
Oh, somebody did launch a token. Oh no one. Yeah, 50 Trump. There you go. Oh man. All right. This is a good chat. Listeners, if you haven't hit subscribe. But our next pod, we may go live stream. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys soon.
Take care.
As always, the views expressed in the Good Game podcast are personal to the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of any other person or entity. Nothing here should be construed or relied upon as investment, legal, tax, or other advice.
Thanks for listening to Good Game. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.